Welcome to the Catholic Table Talk podcast. This is where everything Catholic is on the table. New episodes Thursdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on most podcast platforms. Here's your host, William Sauber.
Hello everyone, thank you again so much. I cannot tell you how much enjoyment I have from people coming up and telling me they're so thankful for the podcast. So without you, the podcast would not exist. So thank you again for joining me for episode 186. This show was supposed to be 188, but we had to do some flip flopping. So hey, that's okay. Yeah. Today's episode is brought to us by Dr. George Saguma. Dr. George Saguma is a family physician who practices holistic health and healing. Find more about him at drgeorge.com. Again, Dr. George, thank you again for sponsoring another episode here at the podcast. Also, for our partners, Tam Books and Guadalupe, I keep saying Rosary, Guadalupe Coffee. You can find, if you go to our website, CatholicTableTalk.com, you can find under the Partners tab, the Partners logos and the tabs where you can shop, where if you use that link and you buy something off Tam Books or Guadalupe Coffee, some of those proceeds will go back to the podcast. So again, CatholicTableTalk.com, on your Partners tab, click on the button that underneath those companies that say shop. Okay, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and follow the show on all of our platforms. Leave a review for us where needed, where you are. Catholic Table Talk at Gmail. There's a minute. Here we go. Okay, now we're back on. Something going on with the audio here, I guess. Okay, I go back. There we go. Again, CatholicTT at gmail.com. Again, it's Catholic with two T's at gmail.com. The official email of Catholic Table Talk Podcast. And yeah, that's about it. Again, 186th day, we're going to talk about what Jesus did through the mystery years of his life. Yes, I said mystery years of his life. When he was 12. What we hear in Luke's Gospel, chapter 2, I think it's verse 52. How he grew in stature and wisdom and, kind of learned, or he kind of grew up more in a human. He was still God, right? He was with the Father, he was still God. But that was when Mary and Joseph returned to Jerusalem looking for him. So we go from that to basically, is the baptism, the feast of Cana, right? Like, so what happened when he was 12 to 3, and really, I got a couple articles. I'm probably going to read one of them. I'll have the other one down in the show notes. Also, I have the one other show that they talk about this. So I thought it was pretty good. I have it down in the show notes as well. But basically, it comes down to people just can't leave this empty, right? Like I can't leave almost half a tank of gas half empty if I'm gonna go like 40 miles. I need to fill it up almost. I'm that kind of. That's how I'm wired, right? So basically, people are like, well, what do you do? Well, it doesn't really matter. He's God. There's nothing in scriptures. Yes, it's a mystery, but that's what it is. It's a mystery. No one probably ever know. So, you can think about it. You can kind of pray about it. You can kind of look at some other people's thoughts on it. But the thing is, no one really knew what he did, right? No one knows. That's just one of the great mysteries that God has. I'm 24 right now. I'm still living at home. I mean, it's, I mean, I'm still kind of tucked away from the rest of the world, so to say, because I'm living at home, right? So, I mean, it could be like me. Someone hasn't seen me since age 12, and then I grow up and I live 6 more years with my mom and dad. All of a sudden, they see me on the street again, and they're like, I mean, on the street, and they're like, "Oh, I haven't seen you since what, man? Age 12? Where you been the last 3 years?" I'll be like, "I've been at home. I've been at home." It's really. But again, I'm not God. Like, I'm not that. I'm not God. So again, people can speculate, people can kind of assume, they can think about it, but I mean, you can't waste. You shouldn't waste too much time on it because again, he was at home, he was a carpenter, and I mean, he was very good at what he was at, which is carpentry, which again, he's God. But again, there's a lots of stuff out there saying, "Oh, he probably did this, and this is this." Is it uh no Snostaic Gospels. I probably am mispronouncing that. Um, but it's kind of what Weems say. It's kind of the St. Thomas Gospel. It's kind of made, and it's just made up. Right? Well, who Jesus was at age so and so, and what he did, and what people thought about him. I mean, basically in Scripture we have it where people when Jesus speaks and people are like, isn't this not Jesus, the son of Mary and Joseph? Like, we know him. And he's speaking like this? Like, I mean, that he's a carpenter. So right there it says he's a carpenter. So what do you think he does? He does carpenter stuff. So anyway, again, it's a lot of fact. My personal opinion is like it's kind of a mystery, but we don't really know the fact of the mystery, right? It's like we don't. So there's only so much time you can meditate on that. It's kind of like, why do I exist? Because God wants me to spend eternity with Him, right? But why He, I mean, there was something I was going to say with that point, but now I'm blanking out. But it's like, there's so much mystery, like the mystery of just God's creation. I mean, it's like he wanted something made, right? But it's just a mystery. You try to wrap your head around it, and my head hurts. So that's what I mean. It's kind of like, okay, let's just stay calm. He was at home. He was in carpentry. Back then, carpentry was way more hard work than today's carpentry. They don't have sawmills. We could cut a wood into a 2x4, right? So, I mean, every wood thing was very, very much heavier. And the one show I give the show notes down below, the Catholic Talk Show, they talk about him walking 4 miles to work every day, over by Nazareth, or to Nazareth, over by a town of Sepharwaya, which is about 4 miles away from Nazareth. They said he walked that twice a day to and from work. Plus you're walking, riding a donkey. So again, all these other made up gospels, made up stories that you might see on the internet, which again, not every Catholic source on the internet is true. I only use a couple of sources for my research too if I, do some research. But again, it's basically that's how I look at it. It's like that's what really kind of came to me when I was thinking about this. It's like, well, if my my cousin didn't see me from age 12 to age 30, and let's just say again, I've been with my parents all my life. Let's say they let me milk it out for another 6 years. They'd be like, "Whoa, I haven't seen you since age 12 at such and such. What you been doing the past 18 years?" I'd be like, "Well, I was living at home, and I was you know kind of learning a few things. Had a job, custodian. I mean, I don't know what else you want me to say." So, but there is an article from the Catholic Diocese of Sioux. I want to get this right. Sufaos. So the question is, that's like basically the question. Why is there nothing in the Bible about Jesus' life for when he was 12 to 30 years old? That is 18 years. And they say, Diocese says, to answer this question and understand why none of the gospel writers give us the details of most of Jesus' life, we must first understand the genre of the gospels. In other words, the type of literature. Through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are in some sense biographies, they differ from the type of biographies written in our own day and our age. It's a little bit different today than it was over 2,000 years ago. The Gospel authors were not concerned in illustrating every final detail of Jesus' life. That would be a very long Gospel, a very big book. Their focus was on his work of salvation, on the reason for his coming as man to redeem and save us from our sins. For example, in Mark's Gospel, Mark gives no account whatsoever of Jesus' origins, divine or earthly. Instead, he begins with the work of St. John the Baptist and moves quickly to Jesus' own public ministry. Like the other Gospels, Mark focuses on Jesus' public ministry, his preaching and his teaching, his miracles, and most importantly, his passion, death, and resurrection. So right there, I mean, Mark doesn't give anything about his origins. Like no Christmas. Not everything in all four Gospels are not the same of how they are written or how they, it's they all have a unique something about them. One has this thing in it, the other one does not. Or the other three does not. One has this miracle, one of them has it, but it's totally different way or different, like I said, different wars, different. So they go in detail, they go in less in detail. So again, it's public ministry. That's why a couple of few shows ago, we did, why didn't Jesus tell people to be quiet? Because he didn't want to focus on the miracles. He wanted to focus on the salvation of it. To have faith in him, to believe in him. So same thing. It's kind of like you don't keep stats about every single day of practice at your sports team. You kind of keep stats and you keep your memory is really of all the games that you played and you actually did quite well in. Or maybe not so well in. This is certainly not to say that Mark and the other writers thought that what happened that Nazareth home was without any meaning whatsoever, whether the focus was on communicating the things that Jesus said and did for our salvation. In other words, the gospel should not be misunderstood as biographies in the modern sense. Rather, they should be understood as biographies with a definitive purpose to tell us the good news of Jesus Christ and the salvation he won for us. It's worth noting another difference between the Gospels, along with other ancient biographies and modern biographies, because it's the cause of some confusion. Catholics who read all four Gospels closely are sometimes surprised to see that there are variations in the Gospels, like I was just saying. Right? Particularly in the order of different events in Jesus' life. Understandably, this often leads to a question about the reliability of the Gospels. If, say, Matthew says A happened before B, but Mark says B happened before A, doesn't one of them have it to be wrong? Perhaps. Surprisingly, the answer is no. Just as ancient biographies, including our four evangelists, were not as concerned as modern biographies about knowing every detail of the life of the person they were writing about. That's what I mean. Today's, we next episode we have Hugh Owen. He really dove into modern society and how that's really messed up. And so tune in next week for that. But again, like me, I'm perfect. I want to be perfect at everything about my job. And it's like you can't be perfect. You can't write down every single detail of a person's life. Okay, these were evangelists. These were who they were with Jesus. They were with them at age 12 to 18. Okay, I mean, the only ones who could probably talk about them would be Mary and Joseph, and maybe those people who were like, "Who? But this is Jesus. He's the same guy. He's the same. We saw him grow up." Maybe his close friends and family, but they didn't really believe in him. It almost sounds like, and if they did, they just whiting was not a big thing back in then. I mean, for a lot of people, right? So the point is, the point for ancient biographies is to tell the truth about whatever their subject did, but in order that serves some other purpose. So in our case, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are not asserting that Jesus did things precisely in order they tell it, but they are asserting Jesus did all these things, thus returning now to Jesus' hidden years. There is another deeper, more spiritual lesson to be drawn from the general absence of details regarding Jesus' childhood and early adulthood in the Gospels. Most of us are inclined to think that the period in Jesus' life must have been extraordinary. Literally, after all, even as a child, Jesus was the up the point up the point up and point creator of the universe, and surely he was able to work miracles just as he was as an adult, and surely he must have shared the wisdom he had as the God man with his family and friends. In fact, most saints and scholars believe Jesus' hidden life was not extraordinary, but in fact ordinary. Chances are he lived and grew up like any other Jewish boy in Nazareth, and he took up the trade of his earthly father, Saint Joseph, and became a hard-working carpenter. While this might seem somewhat dull and uneventful, it is, in fact, of great importance. By living a normal life, Jesus showed how valuable the normal life really is. As some put it, Jesus sanctified the ordinary kind of life that the vast majority of us live. He made it holy. In other words, by joyful living a normal life, Jesus importance that of normal life. For we are called to follow the example set by our God and sanctify each moment of our own lives, no matter how mundane or normal it might seem. For the Christian, greatness is not defined so much by our impact on world affairs, but by the intensity with which we live each moment of our lives, by the degree to which we offer each moment of persistence to God and sanctify it. By excluding the early years of Jesus' life from the Gospels, the authors similarly teach us that the ordinary hidden lives of each one of us are opportunities for holiness. And that was from Chris Bugwell, Diocese of Sioux Falls. Also, Catholic Answers has it. I'll have that in there as well. So yeah, I mean, again, it's it's kind of mystery. He's kind of hidden, but I mean, again, we all he came down to live with us to save us, and that's normal. That's normal life he lived. He got up, there's a routine. He worked, he got home, had supper, spent time with family. That's pretty much. That's probably the best bet. Our best, probably so. But again, it's a mystery. No one really knows. So, any conversation, and really, maybe someone calling you, pray about, think about, but it's nothing. Don't be caught online looking at all these. Oh, he did that. Or he did that, because most of it is made up. So, again, don't go after that. Anywho, hopefully I talked loud enough. I know I have not been talking loud past 3 episodes, so I apologize for that. If you have any comments or questions about today's show, please leave them down in the comments below. Because, I mean, again, this is a big kind of discussion. It's not really talked about, but I mean, it's a big question. And like I said, a lot of people, Protestants, Catholics, atheists, I mean, so like, well, if there's a God, if that is true, what happened? I don't know. Maybe he still was around to do what he did. So, I'm not really stressing out about it, sort of thing. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the mystery of time of what you do at work. Well, where were you from 2 to 4? Oh, I was just kind of checking emails, doing this and that, just kind of doing normal stuff. I'm not working on a project. I kind of took some time off, and to kind of sit back and, you know, do little things for a bit before I got back on track. I got back on what I came to in the work for. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. Again, join us next week as Hugh Owen comes on the show and talks about love, lost, and found. So again, sorry. Hopefully I talked loud enough. Hopefully this kind of makes sense. I kind of threw this together, thinking about it for like a day. Boom, we made it together. Hopefully it makes sense. Let us know. And God willing, we'll see you next week. Stay and stay grace. Go to segments, and we'll see you next time on the one and only Catholic Table Talk podcast with your host, myself, William Saward, and bring a friend next time.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Catholic Table Talk podcast, where everything Catholic is on the table. Don't forget to subscribe to Catholic Table Talk on your favorite podcast platform to get new episodes delivered directly to you every Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern.